I learned something this week. I have read today's gospel lesson. You have read it. You have probably read today's gospel lesson hundreds of times. Haven't you? This is a familiar gospel story, right? The story of Nathanael, the story of Philip. Philip gets excited. He finds Jesus. Jesus finds him. Jesus calls Philip to be a disciple. And what's the first thing Philip does? Goes and tells a friend, Nathanael. Now, Nathanael is Nathanael in John's gospel. If you're wondering why you can't find Nathanael in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, it's because he goes by Bartholomew, however you say it, in the other gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. So this Thursday, I went to a pastors and deacons meeting over at Lutheran Metropolitan Ministry. Have you ever been there? Lutheran Metropolitan Ministry. It's a very big ministry here in the area in Cleveland. They do a lot of good work with the homeless, the hungry. They have a homeless shelter. They do lots of good work. So we met with the CEO of Lutheran Metropolitan Ministry, LMM. And then afterwards, we had a worship service, and then we had a meal. And during the worship service, Pastor Shields, she's the senior the senior pastor in this area, in this conference. So she delivered, it was her turn to deliver the brief homily, and she used this gospel lesson for her brief message. And she said something that I had never even seen before, and I found that to be shocking because I should have known better. Because I did a lot of counseling back in my day, particularly as a Navy chaplain. I told you that before. I had over 20,000 hours of counseling. I met with thousands and thousands of young sailors and Marines, and Coast Guardsmen and Army people, and some Air Force as well, because I served with them in Iceland. And one of the things people say, when they come and they want to talk about issues in their life, they may have an issue at home, maybe with their spouse or with their kids. They're not connecting. Their relationship may be off. Maybe because of their job at work, their supervisor, maybe they're not getting along with their boss, maybe they're not getting along with their coworkers. And a lot of these people will say to me, well, I just want to be heard. I want to be heard. I want to be understood. I want my spouse to hear me, to understand what I'm saying, or my boss, my coworkers. They say they want to be heard and understood. They want to be seen. They want to be valued, understood, heard. I learned very early on that when most people come and they want to talk, they're not looking for an easy answer. Most people are not. They don't want to come to me and say, give me an answer to this question or this problem. Sometimes theologically people will do that. They'll say, so what do you believe about this or that? And I would, then I could certainly say how we might interpret a passage. But most people who come to want to talk, they don't want me to talk. They want to be heard. They want to be understood. They want to work their problem out safely with another human being who can listen. Maybe ask the right questions so that the person can kind of dig into the situation that they're dealing with. They want to be heard. They want to be understood. They want to be seen. And I know that. So, in going on Thursday, normally, I have interpreted today's reading where Philip gets excited and he talks to Nathanael, and Nathanael is a bit skeptical. He goes to Jesus himself, and he becomes a great disciple. One of the first 12. It's a great story. And I often looked at it and said to myself, well, what would it be like to be Philip, to be this excited? What would it be like to be Nathaniel and maybe have a little bit of skepticism? Yeah, nothing. What good comes out of Nazareth? How can that be? I mean, Nazareth was this little tiny hamlet, if you will. Poor. What good can come out of Nazareth? What's that? That's a good point, doesn't it? Yes. She said, he sounds like a teenager. Well, he probably was a teenager. Yeah, probably, no doubt. But we don't know. You know, that's interesting. They never tell us ages. We always assume, you know, they're either old or they're young, whatever. Yeah, we don't know. But the thing that Pastor Shields pointed out, and how could I miss it? Jesus saw Nathanael. Did you hear it? Did you hear it in the reading? Jesus yells out to Nathanael, and I'll paraphrase. And essentially, this is what Jesus is saying. He's saying, hey, look at Nathanael. He is a pretty good guy. And Nathanael says, well, how do you know? You know, how do you know me? And Jesus gives the answer. I saw you. And when Jesus, as God, tells us that he sees us, that's just it. He sees us as we are. Jesus, when Jesus looks at us, he sees us through and through. He knows everything about us. From long before we were even born, before even the foundation, before God said, let there be light, Jesus saw you. Jesus knows you inside and out, every single one of us. He knows our past. He knows our sinfulness. He knows the good. He knows the bad. Everything. I can't help but look to those of us who have been close to people, maybe a brother or a sister, mother, father, aunt or uncle, grandma, spouse, and best friend. They know us. They see us. They've seen us in the good. They've seen us in the bad. Like a spouse, like a good friend, they still love us. We can be with someone for years and they see us for who we truly are. I can't help but look back when I came home from the hospital after that prostate surgery. I mentioned this before. I was a mess. I looked bad. I mean, I was nothing pretty to look at sitting in the chair. Like not moving because I didn't want to move. The tube sticking out of me and a dye. My wife was there. She saw me at my worst. She's seen me at my worst physically. She's seen me at my worst emotionally. She's seen me at my worst, verbally. One time my wife and I were having an argument one time. Now this is many years ago. This is probably back in the late 90s. We're having an argument or whatever. I don't even remember what it was about. I said something that I ought not have said. And Melanie said to me, "You can't say that! You are a pastor." Oh, that was a low blow. But she was right, and I just froze. Yeah, you're right. Shame on me. But my wife has seen me at my worst and at my best, and everything in between. Same thing with my friends. Remember my friend here from high school has been here twice. We grew up together. He's seen me at my best and at my worst. He still loves me. Melanie still loves me. When Jesus looks at you, he knows you. He sees you. He hears you. He knows your past, and he knows your future too. Jesus knows everything about us and still loves us. That is incredible. For God so loved the world, trying to help the kids. My goal was that they would memorize John 3:16 and God does love us, and the Bible does tell us so. And to hear in today's gospel lesson, we hear it plainly. Jesus sees us. Jesus sees us the way he saw Nathanael. Jesus saw Nathanael sitting under the fig tree. That was Jesus' way of saying he knew everything about the man. He knew his past. He knew his future. He knew every sin he ever committed. He knew every good thing he's ever done, every kind word, every bad word, whatever. Jesus called him to be his disciple. Jesus loved him. Jesus saw him, he heard him, and that is the way it is with each and every one of us. We ought not ever forget that so often we do get down on ourselves. I think it's the hardest for us to forgive ourselves, really, than it is to forgive somebody else. But the fact of the matter is that God truly does love you. And it's not a blind love. It is a love that is perfectly, 100% eyes open, knows you completely and me, yet loves me anyway. And that's power. Now I can use that. Now I can go about my week this week knowing, acting, believing that I am truly loved. And I can take that love with me everywhere I go. And maybe there'll be a moment that that love will be shared and it will change somebody's life. And that's what I'm hoping for each and every one of us. You are loved. And that is power. Power to do love back. To God, to each other, to everyone we meet. To share the gospel with love. I mean, let's face it, God is love. And we are given love. Now we share that love.